This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Without further ado, let's go to line number 2 and welcome Kelly Travers Hiscock to the line. Sorry, my eyes are deceiving me here this morning. Good morning, Kelly. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm probably a lot better than you this morning, and everything that you've been going through since your husband, Mark Hiscock, passed away. Your husband, my friend, my longtime friend. My God, I can just remember on the days on the Skidemia back in the early 80s, or late 90s, early 90s, late 80s, I should say, when him and Chris Andrews were just starting out with the little duo on the Skidemia, and that's how I first met Mark. But of course, he met the most untimely of deaths, and you have some real issues with the treatment he received in the immediate aftermath of his fall, right?
For sure, Brian, and I mean, I'm sure everybody, in the province, most everybody seen the interview last night, and as a family, we're just really, really frustrated that here we are, over a year later. I mean, it was a year in May that Mark passed away, and we still can't seem to get any answers, and, we followed the proper processes, we requested the proper information the way that we were advised to do so, and, we're still fighting and struggling to understand and come to terms with what happened to Mark.
Yeah, and Kelly, I should never, I probably, I know it was on NTV last night, but for those who didn't see it, because, not everyone, obviously, hears this show or sees that show, or, we're all busy and we all have busy lives. Can you just take me back through again? I remember the details. A few people, I was a bit closer to it. Some friends told me what happened in the aftermath, but we really didn't want to go there until, you as a family got your heads around it and how you wanted to approach this. But can you just take me through what happened?
I certainly will, and I mean it's heartbreaking to hear, so I apologize for that. But I mean, Mark wore bifocal glasses, so I mean usually when he was going downstairs or upstairs, he would lift his bifocals up on his head, and he just had an accident. He didn't take his bifocals up this day. He was stepping onto the boat, and when he did, he lost his depth perception and he missed a step and he fell into the boat, and that happened on a Tuesday. He got up from that. He was feeling pain.
And could happen to anybody. Could happen to anyone.
Oh, for sure. It was definitely an accident, and he did get up from that. I mean, he struggled with pain for a couple days, and then Thursday he was supposed to leave Friday with the band to go to Labrador to play, and he still had in his mind he was going to push to do that because Mark never ever canceled playing. But he was feeling it. He was feeling the pain. So on Thursday he went into the hospital, and he explained from the triage notes we reviewed. He told them what had happened. He told them how he had fell, and they did, and he also told them where he was having the pain, and they did a chest x-ray on him, and Mark was sent away. They didn't find anything, and Mark was sent away from there with anti-inflammatories. So on Friday Mark was again progressively getting worse each day, and he had to make a decision that he couldn't go to Labrador to play. He could hardly lift his accordion. It was the first time for him to have to, like I said, cancel a show by Sunday. I mean, he was we could see the changes, all of us. I mean, just in talking to Mark and, seeing he was, having difficulty lifting his arms. So, but, we're all stubborn over our health, and we all kind of push ourselves that we feel we're going to get better. And, Mark was trusting that the medication he was given on the first visit was going to get him better. And, by Sunday evening or into the early hours of Monday morning, Mark ended up back in the hospital and, had said, since what happened, here's what I'm feeling now. And, he was feeling more pain. It was in further parts of his body, and, he was having, difficulty taking a breath, and, there was a lot. And Mark's voice was slurred, like you could even tell in his voice that his voice was off. And he was in and out that night within 10 minutes. So no further testing was done. He was just given another medication and sent on his way. And the next day, Mark collapsed at our house, and he was taken by ambulance, and unfortunately Mark didn't make it. He passed away that day. We couldn't understand it. We sat with him that day when he was on life support in the hospital and trying to get answers, trying to understand, what had happened. And when we learned that, he did have breaks, he had fractures in his back, his neck, that could have been caught if the proper testing, in our opinion, if more testing and proper testing had been done, on that second visit for sure, to get him the required care, maybe he'd still be with us. and that's what we're living with every day.
For the past year and then some. Kelly, this is, obviously you've called and you've got the strength to talk about this, so I'm just wondering, were you able to determine, did they give you a definitive cause of death?
Yeah, so, and the autopsy report, it was, so the break in his back is what actually caused the death, because he went septic. So infection set in the break in the back, and the septic is what actually caused his death. And I remember speaking to the medical examiner because we had so many questions, and I said, because I couldn't understand how Mark's back was broken, and we didn't notice of his
Sure.
visits to the hospital. And I said, are you sure Mark's back was broke when he fell? And the medical examiner's exact words to me was, his back had to be broke in order for the timeline for the infection to set in. So, Mark fell on a Tuesday and he died 1 week later. So, it was very clear to us from the medical examiner and from the autopsy report of what caused his death.
Was there anything about the visit, like the initial admission to hospital, that you can remember that seemed unusual, or did it all seem straightforward? Was it rushed? Did they seem to give it due attention and all that sort of thing at the time?
Well, I wasn't with Mark because I was away working when he went to his visit to the hospital, and I can only go on, what happened and what was in the medical triage notes and what Mark had communicated with me. But, we trusted, Mark trusted that first visit. He trusted what was being told. Everybody who knows Mark wasn't a pusher or a fighter, or,
No.
he was a very, very caring man, and he would never, disrespect anybody who in authority or anybody in healthcare, and he just trusted that what they told him and what they sent him away was going to make him better, and he truly did not believe that he was in as serious as he was either. He just thought that that's what they told him, and eventually he was going to come out of it and get better.
Kelly, this is, as you said, it was May 6th of last year, so we're beyond a year and a month and more. So what actions have you taken to this? Obviously people are wondering, are you going to, to what extent you're going to pursue this, legally or otherwise?
Well, for us, we just wanted answers. We wanted, accountability, if accountability is warranted. We wanted, we requested a quality review, which is a standard practice when you feel that something was done incorrectly in the healthcare system. We sat through that with, some members of the healthcare organization, and we were provided with no answers. We asked lots of questions, but we came out of that meeting actually with more serious concerns of what happened, because we found out that second night that Mark had went to the hospital, it was an unusually slow night. So, there was no real reason for Mark to be rushed out or, in and out in 10 minutes. And, so we were left with a lot of questions. And, most of the questions that we did ask, they weren't allowed to answer due to privacy. We heard that many times in that meeting. And, all of us were there, Mark's parents, Mark's brother, myself, our son, and it just was, again, we don't understand why we can't sit with someone and really get answers. And, if there is something that went wrong, an assurance to everybody. We continuously see things on the news and see things happening with the healthcare. And that's, it's upsetting because there's so many people that don't get the answers. And, what can we do? We had to do something here to make sure that when somebody goes in, we trust our healthcare people. We trust that we're going to get the right diagnosis. We're going to get, sent away with the proper care or kept in if we need the proper care. And, it's just so upsetting that nobody wants to answer or tell us the exact facts or what's been done about it, or, is there accountability? In any environment out there, if somebody does something wrong or something happens, you got to own up to it, and we got to, make changes and make things different so it doesn't happen to anybody else. And that's really what we want as a family.
Well, yeah.
And,
Go ahead, sorry.
No, Brian, just to say, this is what we done. This is what's going to happen forward. This is we've taken measures, and and Mark, if Mark was here right now and he could talk himself, he would say, we want to make sure that things are different, because in this province we see so much going on, and less we got to push. We got to make things different. We got to take the time and listen to people when they're coming into the hospital. We got to, make sure proper testing and do extra testing to make sure you're sending people home properly. Like, that's my feeling, is like, why didn't we take the time, from our look into it? Why wasn't he given the time, especially on that second visit, knowing he had a fall and knowing that he was feeling a lot of different symptoms? Why wasn't the time taken with him?
Yeah, that's why I kind of asked you earlier how the process was at the hospital, whether or not they were rushed in that scene. But I mean, look, the privacy issue, they're going to not really go down the road of revealing all of the information at that point, because they may be liable. And it could come to that. And that's usually where the privacy kicks in, seeing where this goes. Especially, look, mistakes happen. We know it. I hear it too often on this program. We hear it too much in the news on a regular basis. And look, Kelly, I wish you, I don't know what to say. I don't wish you the most. You said if Mark was here now, I really wish he was here now. I know we all do. What a void. I mean, I still can't believe it. I just picture him, just haven't seen him much because he's torn with the boys. But no, it's not that. And we've lost him, and we need answers. You deserve answers. And if you get any, we're right here to let if you want to let us know, give us an update and tell us where it's going, so we can all just sort of get our heads around this as to what happened to Mark Hiscock, a legend to many of us, like to the scene, to just as a person and as a good person. Like, it's just too big, too important, and too serious, and too big a loss. So my sympathies to you and the family again.
Thank you, Brian. And hopefully somebody, from government. I mean, I reached out to the Premier's office, and, last year when it happened, was a different government in at that time, and I tried to reach out then with no avail. So hopefully someone out there can get back to us and, really take the time to sit with us and give us some candid information, something that can help ease our minds for sure. And
let me know if and when that does happen, Kelly. I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
The leader of the provincial NDP and the NDP MHA, of course, for St. John Centre, Jim Dinn, thanks for your patience. You're on the air.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome anytime. Let's see. What's the first thing on the top of your mind, I wonder?
I get one of the first thing I get has to do with the whole busing and the double bus plan to have double bus runs as a result of the elimination of the 1.6 kilometer busing rule that they've advocated, the government has advocated for, and the potential of changing the opening and closing times of schools, daily opening and closing times.
Yeah. I mean, you're a former NLTA president and a long-time teacher in the classroom. What do you make of it?
I put it this way. I think, and I wrote the minister on this, and I copied the Minister of Education and the Premier on this as well, and I think the NLTA president. Look, it seems there are a lot of promises that are made, and when there comes time to deliver, and governments, regardless of their political stripe, and the Liberals or the PCs, it seems to it comes. How do we make this work on the backs of the school communities? And that means the schools themselves, the teachers, the students, and the parents. And this is yet another example of that. I'll be honest with you, Brian, I listened in the House of Assembly since I was first elected, as the PCs presented petition after petition on this. When the Liberals finally brought this in and announced it in 2023, the PCs were quick to take credit for it, and saying it should have been done earlier. When I think the former Premier announced the cost of it, at no point was there raised by the PCs a concern about the cost of this and what this would mean. Personally speaking, when I was sitting there, I was thinking, yeah, this is going to have implications. And secondly, if I'm going to, while transportation to school is important, I was thinking if I had $20 million, $10 million a year, or whatever else, or to put into the education system at the time. There are other areas that would be a priority for me to make the education system better. We're still not addressing the issues around school violence, around the need for inclusive education, the needs to address class caps and class composition. All those have gone to the wayside. Now that the PECs are in, all of a sudden, well, this is going to be we didn't. It's almost like they didn't realize the full cost of it, and now they're trying to find ways to make this work. But in the end, it's going to be the schools that are going to take the hit for it. It's as simple as that. This is not an educational decision. Yes. There are studies that show that older students, high school students, benefit from starting the day a little later. But I would argue that's probably the same for all students. But right now, it also means that younger students are going to be on, especially if there's any length of the bus route, they're going to be on the road earlier. They're going to be getting up in the dark, and especially in the wintertime. It's a long day, and there are other issues related to it. But I find it very frustrating that in the end, to deliver on a promise, they're going to find a way to take it out of the school system. I also don't buy the fact that they're going to have reinvest whatever savings into the school system. I've been around long enough to realize that doesn't always that promise doesn't always work out either.
Yeah, I mean, until they don't put it in, it's hard to say they're not going to or they haven't. And again, this hasn't come to fruition yet. We do know. Do you give them any points for the survey, or is it too little, too late?
They should have. Look, before you, when you announce something, maybe that's the best time. Here's what we're thinking about doing, but here's what it will mean. So maybe you should have done this before, but in all the advocacy for it, what was there was never a concern. Well, they had to come from somewhere. Where we're going to get the money. So yes, they've done the survey, but I think it's a little bit after they're closing the barn door, I guess, after the horses escaped. In some ways, this should have been done before this, as to fully understanding what does this mean. I suspect that they're going to proceed with it. But I'll give you another example. Sure. Full day kindergarten was brought in, and a great idea. But Brian, in doing that, they had to find the resources from within the school system. So they introduced combined grades and increased the class caps, class size. So they basically eliminated and found their 140 teachers from those savings for the full day kindergarten. So they brought it in, but again, it came at the expense of the rest of the system, the grade 1 to 12 system. Instead of looking upon it as an investment, there's always going to be a price to be paid, and in many ways, to make the promise to push for this without realizing that it was incredibly naive. And I hold both the PECs, because they're the ones that pushed for it, and the Liberals who brought it in. It was a political thing that I guess the PECs knew is favorable. The Liberals brought it in because we figured there was going to be an election soon at that point, and it was going to boost. It is another thing that they could add to their, as look at what we've done. But in all this, I don't think ever was considered what would be the impact on the school system.
It's hard to believe that. I mean, look, that's the issue, right? I mean, the government has made no bones about the fact that this is about the $27 million estimated over a 5-year period to be saved through these bus school systems. So, that rubs people the wrong way. It sounds like, okay, so it is about the money, and it's not about how this is going to upset the family, or how it's going to upset our schedules and daycare and just overall kids, health, earlier start times versus later, all those issues that have been raised. Jim, look, I only got a few minutes before the bottom of the break, and I didn't want to let this go. I'm trying to get everyone's generalized, really, opinion on these phishing emails that came out from NL Health Services. It's a balance. I appreciate that, the pushback and the disgust with it all, I think the word that Jerry Earl would use the most, is one thing. But can you see the balance here? I mean, there is a definite need for these kinds of things, cybersecurity awareness amongst your employees, because the losses to the system, and we know, I mean, I've had you and others, of course, when there are privacy breaches, rightly so, kicking back or pushing back about the safety that we don't have in the system, and this is exactly what these things are meant for. But of course, Ron Johnson of NL Health Services has already said it missed the mark, and they've apologized. Anything else they should be doing here?
Look, here's a thought. Maybe they could have sent out an email, say, look, over the next few weeks, we're going to be sending out phishing email. We want you, when you see it, we want you to identify it and let us know that you've identified. Maybe it comes down to, you could say, look, and your name will be entered into a draw for some prize. It would have been a more proactive and positive, and if it's about raising awareness, then that would have done the job. If this is about gotcha, well, then that's the approach they talked. I listened to an interview on this as well. So you can either have the positive or a negative reinforcement. But I guess the other thing what is about this is that they took the one thing. It tells me that they know the one thing that's causing health care workers the most stress is the fact that they lose vacation time. They don't have no flexibility in their schedules, that they are overworked and overburdened. And they took this thing and they use that to trick and attempt to trick the workers. Instead of trying to we're not going to address that problem. We're going to use that problem to get what we want. But here's the thing: they could have easily done this in a more proactive and a collaborative way. We will be sending out. We want you to be aware of this. We want you to, when you see it, to let us know. At least this way, you would have been bringing people in to it. Okay, we're going to be on the lookout for this. We're going to pay attention to it, and if nothing else, it's about raising awareness. There was a much better way of doing this that was more respectful, and that would have accomplished the same thing. We also know in these privacy breaches in the past, it has more to do with the fact that the lack of safeguards that the whole overall system has, and how vulnerable it is to it. So it's great we're raising awareness, but man, you could have taken a much more respectful approach to a group of people who are already trying to keep the system going, performing at over 100%, and trying to solve and keep people healthy and keep people in the people coming to hospital cared for. So that would be my take. If you want, that somewhere along the line, someone should have said, "Yeah, look, this is a much better way." You might as well, for that matter, during a fire drill, set a fire and say and see how people respond. That's not how we do it. So in this case, it comes down to it's the constant reminders. There are better ways to have done this. This is pretty low, considering the fact that we know you've talked about it, I've talked about it, about how serious the issue of what we're trying to do to retain healthcare workers and recruit them. This is not helping the matter.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. And look, it looks like they are on the same page. I mean, they've said as much, that this is exactly what was wrong with it, and it's the wrong way to go. And on the fire drill side of thing, if you're giving people a heads up, it's kind of like saying, okay, we're going to have a fire drill at 12 o'clock, so you'll be prepared for it. But ultimately, they don't want to be prepared. They need to get an accurate assessment of how quick you can get out of the damn building. And I guess that's the thinking here. On the lack of personal emotional side, they gave it to Ernst Young, who did what they were asked to do. Come up with some test that can find out how many people would fall for it.
But I would agree with you. Like we at schools, we would have a fire drill as well. We'd know, but then again, they'd have the drill, unannounced, and we would see how we would get out.
Yeah.
But at no time did they go beyond let's really make this realistic now, and add to the panic here. Again, I still think over the next few weeks. There will be phishing. We will be doing this here now. Mm-hmm. You're not saying when it's going to happen, but be on the lookout. And what are you doing? You're raising awareness.
Sure.
So I'm not taking away from the need to make sure we don't. We're all responsible for the security of the system. But I think there's a way to raise awareness. I tend to be naturally suspicious of emails that come in, and I read the warnings that don't open the links and so on and so forth. But we're all human.
Yep.
But at the same time, making people people aware of it all the time is just as good a way. And by the way, if they have a problem with if they're picking up on a problem where someone is that they have concerns about maybe certain practices of people, well, there are ways you can deal with that as well. Instead of sending out a blanket one, and which is designed to have a gotcha, as opposed to let's do an education piece first.
Yep.
Or it's a poor decision considering the importance of the issue of leave and the workload and everything else for workers.
Loud and clear, Jim. I appreciate the time as always. As the leader of the party, I know it's precious. So thanks again for making time for the program.
You're welcome. Take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 2 and welcome Joel Thomas Hines to the program. Joel, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Brian?
Great, bye. Thanks for making time for the show. I reached out a little while ago. First of all, I was going to introduce, I didn't know how to introduce. I was going to say actor, musician, author, and cute puppy owner. I got to tell you. How's the puppy?
Oh, yeah, he's right here. He's good, boy. He's right here beside me. He's 15 years old. He's slowing down a little bit, but by comparison, he's still pretty. He's on the go, man. That's all I can say. He's in good health.
Yeah, what's his name again?
People love that dog, hey? So many people love Bruno.
Bruno, right.
Listen, Brian.
Go for it.
I was on earlier when the Honorable Jim Din was on before me. He's an old teacher of mine.
Yeah.
And needless to say, he went on, and I was a bit. I just had this flashback.
Flashbacks.
I had this flashback of a fire alarm up in St. Joseph's Elementary in Furland. That's where I went to elementary school.
That's right.
And the nun was down at the bottom of the stairs, and we were on the top floor. And when we were on our way down the stairs, this great big blast of smoke hit us all going down over the stairs. And it was like this bizarre smelling smoke. And we all had to turn around. And the nun was downstairs and had mixed up a pile of stuff. I don't know, some kind of chemicals or something. And this big blast of smoke came up. And we were to make us take it all seriously. And we were all freaked out. We had to all go the other way. And I was just thinking about that. My God, you'd never get away with that today, would you?
No, you certainly wouldn't. And that was pretty fortuitous timing that Jim would be on just before you. Of course, we planned that. That's the way it works here on Open Line.
Yeah.
Listen, so let's talk about the rooms display coming up on your famous Uncle Ron. A little bit more famous than yourself. But look, we all miss him like there's no tomorrow. 15. I can't believe it's been 11 years almost. That blows me away. Since we watched him play his last show, fortunate enough to be at Memorial Stadium, or not Memorial Stadium, the Mile 1 down there for his last performance. And now we're trying to find a jacket to add to this display that's going to go at the rooms. And just give me an idea what it's going to include, when it'll be, and what we have to do to track down this iconic jacket.
I wish I could give you a hard date, but I can't at this point, where it's just a project that's in the works. But sometime over the next couple of months, you're going to be able to go to the rooms, and there will be a display of some of Ron Hines' more iconic possessions, like his hat and his first guitar, and a Mackenzie Mars Ron Hines songwriter's guitar that he collaborated with for young songwriters. And, his Newfoundland pin, maybe a pair of boots. My other uncle, Gordon, said when Ron died and we were going through his stuff up at my grandfather's house, he said, no man should be allowed to own that many pairs of boots. So you might see bare boots there.
I can only imagine Ron's reaction to that comment. But anyway,
and handwritten lyrics, like the first iteration, say, of "If I Left You Alone with My Heart" in a different key with alternative lyrics, and then the progress of the song.
Yeah. Yep.
And things like that. And there's going to be a listening booth so that you can individually listen to a version of a song that you haven't ever heard that version before, or a song that you've never heard before. And we have a whole album of that he recorded in 1976 in Kingston, Ontario, in a studio up there. And the very first recording of Sonny's Dream is on that recording.
As opposed to all the other thousands of rip-offs around the world. Sorry.
There are. None of that will be available online or anything like that, and it won't be for public listening. It'll be for the individual to sit and listen.
Wow.
Right?
So pretty exclusive, yeah. You won't be able to get it anywhere else other than the rooms.
Yes. And so, in the building of all this whole display, I've learned these technical terms, the vast technical difference between a display and an exhibit. It is not an exhibit. The rooms have been, quite adamant about that. This is not an exhibit, it's a display. I said, okay. So, but in building all that, it's been really nice working with the rooms, and I've been brought around and shown how they curate, how they take care of things, and the paper trails behind all that. So they've been awesome about this from day one. And I have been looking for this jacket for a few years. So it was my grandfather's old leather biker style jacket, a really heavy duty jacket that he bought in the 50s in Montreal. And had a real nice red liner. These things were built to last. So the jacket, if it's out there, it's 75 years old. My grandfather would wear it up in the shed when he got older because my grandmother wouldn't let him wear it anymore. And sometimes he'd put it in the trunk of his car and drive, and then put it on when he got where he was going, right?
Yeah.
So she wouldn't see him wearing it.
And there's a picture of it. If anybody wants to see a picture of it, there's a great iconic shot of you and Ron. I think you're at Willicott Lane, isn't it? You're just at the entrance.
We are, yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I said it to my daughter last night. I said, that's the laneway we always cut through down behind the old Masonic Temple.
Yeah, I lived in Willicott Lane at the time.
Yep.
That was some Globe and Mail shoot. I had released Right Away Monday, and there's a character in Right Away Monday in that book heavily based on my Uncle Ron, right?
Yeah.
But that jacket, my grandfather gave it to Ron sometime in the early 2000s, and Ron wore it. And he kind of wore it when he was in his rock and roll mood, and he was going down to the Fat Cat or somewhere to just play as loud as possible. And he wore it on the road a lot. And it was a very comfort, it was almost like comfort food putting on that jacket. You know what it's like when you find the right leather jacket.
Yes,
And
sir.
then Ron gave it to me for a while, and I wore it a lot, and then he took it back, and then he gave it to Lily for a bit, and then Lily gave it back to him after a while, and then
His
I
daughter,
had
Lily.
it,
Yep.
and Lily had it. Lily is his daughter, Lily Hines. And then somewhere around 2015, it vanished. And, a number of personal items just never saw the light of day again. And some people had access to my grandfather's house who probably shouldn't have. And the other thing is, I have no idea if the jacket is still out there, because to some people, they might have looked at this jacket and the liner was ripped and the old zipper was busted on the pockets and the leather was worn almost right through the rawhide on the neck, and it might have looked like an old piece of junk to a lot of people.
If you didn't know what it was, yeah.
If you didn't know what it was, you just might trash it. So I'm not saying it's out there and somebody's got it and they're holding on to it and they won't give it to me or nothing like that. I'm saying I just want to track it down.
Yeah, they may have it and they don't understand.
Even if somebody had it and didn't want to give it back, well, that's fine. I'd love to know that it's out there,
Yeah.
And I will say this. Over the winter, I bought a brand spanking new Canadian made in Montreal, Master Supply Co. leather jacket, same size, red lining, same style.
Would you trade it?
And still got the tags on it. It still comes with the bag and accessories to it, and that is up for trade. If anybody can find that old leather jacket, I'll give you a brand new one.
Awesome. Joel, let's find it. Like I said, it's, you never know where it could be or where, but it could very well. Let's hope somebody has it, doesn't realize the value of it, and is hearing this, and just like it no sweat off their back to give it to you, at least even just for the exhibit, and they may even take the trade. Got to get off to the break, but look, I know it was hard. I know you were busy this week and last week with stuff going on, so thanks for making time. I think, I mentioned this, but it's got so much more weight when you come on yourself and make that personal appeal. And keep me posted on the display, not the exhibit.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it, Joe. Good luck.
All right, take it easy.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to Kathy on line 3. Kathy, you got a bouquet.
Last Friday, I was at Selby's at the checkout, and while I was getting my money out of my purse, the cashier said, "It's paid for." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And it was the gentleman behind me. So I said, "I wonder, sir, may I ask your name?" And he said, "Eddie." And I said, "Well, this 82-year-old lady would like to thank Eddie." And he said, "Well, a 75-year-old Eddie." So, Eddie, if you're listening, because I'm really an analog person in a digital world. I'm not on Facebook or anything.
Good for
so
you.
thank you very much. And I'm a big believer in paying it forward, and I have done it many times, and I've done it twice since last Friday.
And
so I think Eddie would like to know that.
And you've done it here on the show, and I can't thank you enough for it, because look, the gestures are wonderful, but the time to take to go and actually say, appreciate it, and a shout out or a call out, and to say it. We need more people like that to say, because there are good people out there doing good things despite everything else that we're facing. So, Kathy, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
And thank you. And I said, no, I have to call because it's just too much depressing things you're hearing.
You got it. And I thank you for turning that table and turning frowns upside down.
And thank you, Brian, very much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Right to line number 4, and Gord Piercy, Association of Allied Health Professionals, President of the AHP. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm so far so good. She's on wheels here this morning, but go for it.
Yeah, I guess you got a lot on the go there this morning. So, Brian, I just wanted to call in and touch base on the email security issue that's happening at NL Health Services, and just make a few points about where we're to as a union representing our 850 members inside of NL Health.
Mm-hmm. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So, Brian, we're into a situation here. I mean, first thing that, we understand that you need to do email security issues. We know that needs to be tested. We know that piece has to happen. As a union president, we're running an organization too, so we totally get that. We have to do our own security and all that piece as well. But I think this one, and people have experienced, tests of that inside the system as well. But this one was very, very different. It had a lot of high emotion things. It left workers, employees very demoralized, hurt, upset. I've had dozens of emails come through our office, through our board members, and it's really to just hear them kind of tell their story about this is really, really, really upsetting.
Yeah, Gord, you can see all organizations, ours as well, everyone is doing these things these days to try to catch up with the scammers and the phishing exercises and those sorts of things that can really disrupt and disable a company and cost them a lot of money. And God knows that we spend enough money on healthcare in this province. And when privacy breaches come out, we wonder, man, how lax is the security? And this is what they do to try to strengthen and bolster that security. And they make these things as realistic as possible because of the risk and the cost, right? So in this case, they went really for the jugular, completely preying on the workers what they would want most, a break. Like, who doesn't want a day off, right? It's almost cruel in many eyes, of course, to dangle that carrot, but...
Yeah. Well, and Brian, two major red flags that should have gone off regarding this matter is, like we were saying, with Core Care. It came in April. There's still a lot of pressure, stress going on with that. It is still being actively implemented. Mm-hmm. And, it's not something that happened over a couple of days in April and it's over. I was speaking to one of our members earlier the week before all this happened. She had just returned to her regular job in one of the health settings here in St. John's. She was a Core Care trainer.
Yeah.
And she was now back in her own job, her frontline healthcare worker position, and trying to train herself into doing her job, because part of her job as a core care trainer did not involve her own area. So she had to go back in and learn that for herself. So, you know, it's still very much post-secondary students. There's still a lot of struggle there. Students going in and needing to also document inside the system. And every day, workers are still feeling and experiencing challenges with core care. So still a lot of emotion there, still a lot of challenges, a lot of learning happening, and, you know, people are frustrated and trying to look after patients in amongst all of that. The other thing too, Brian, is the other thing is that this time of year, particularly June month, there's often a lot of big emotion of an annual leave. There are people at this time who are probably getting denials of summer leave, not going to be able to do things they had wanted to do or planned to do or thought they could do with their family or friends. So even this time of year happens a bit around Christmas time too, as you can imagine, but there's a lot of emotion around annual leave. So it's two big ticket items that put together just, I think, between core care and then leave approvals and things like that, like really bad intersection, really poor timing, and really poorly thought out in our minds.
Yeah, and I get it. As I said, you know, the goal here was to see if workers can recognize phishing emails as in any company, scams, malware, you name it. So it does help to make them as realistic as possible. That's the goal. Like Ernst & Young is the third party here. And I think Ron Johnson with the NLH Services, the interim current CEO, you know, talked about, you know, they missed the mark and that the proper lenses weren't put on this at the highest levels of Eastern Health. So it didn't get a once-over once it came from the third party to determine if it might be just, you know, crossing a line here. Because, you know, any of this, the harm can destroy a company, depending on what, you know, what info is taken and hooked and the reputation of the company. So as the knife in the back, as much of a, you know, I was going to say a knife in the back as this was for staff, like they need any more knocks to morale, right? It's a tough one, right? It's a balancing act that, you know, they have to have it, and they need to try to ensure that they can catch any of these scams that can disrupt entire systems. So, but as he said, it missed the mark. So anyway, Gord, I'll give you a sector to wrap up. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. And, you know, I guess, Brian, for us, you know, the part that we're struggling with, too, is that we feel this is part of a bigger problem. It's a bigger situation. You know, the types of things that we're dealing with inside of NL Health of, you know, failed reassurances, promises to do better. I have a room full of promises to do better. And, you know, from that part, it gets really exhausting when you see we're going to do better, we're going to try better, we're going to do better, and it never seems to materialize. And that is, I think, one of the things that's fueling employee upset at this point in time, is just that revolving thing. Anything that we can get to do to try to improve morale, workplace culture, things like that, when something like this occurs, it can dissipate that in a heartbeat. It can just totally, you know, malign that really, really quickly. And I got to be honest with you. I don't want, you know, we've seen apologies over the last day or so. I don't want to be told they're going to do better. I want to see that they're going to do better. And I think our members want to experience that as well.
I couldn't agree with you more, Gord. So thanks for weighing in on it. I know we're going to hear from others as well. Appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you so much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Get her going and keep her going. Right to line number 6. And Betty, you're on the air.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
What's on your mind?
I was calling about a bird I seen in my yard this morning. He was bigger than, well, not bigger than a robin. He was a big kind of a brownish bird with black wings and black long bill and black under his chest.
Mm-hmm. Where did you see him?
Strange bird I never had seen before.
Whereabouts did you see him?
I seen him. I'm in St. Mary's.
Okay.
I seen him in the yard this morning.
And just describe him again. So nothing you've ever look. I wouldn't call myself a birder, enthusiast to the extent that some people are. But I definitely, when I see something unusual, feathered friend, it always catches my attention and curiosity. So these perk up a lot of ears when you see something unusual, and you've never seen anything like it. How different is it?
No, I've never seen anything like it before. He was a brown, beigeish brown with black wings and black under his chest, and he had a real long bill.
And a real long bill.
Yeah, about more than an inch long. He was small. He was bigger than a robin.
And nothing you've ever seen like it before. That's the trick,
nothing
right?
ever seen like it before.
Because we know what kind of...
It was a nice-looking bird.
Yeah? You get any pictures or anything like that, or was anyone able
No, I didn't get pictures. I was eating my breakfast when I saw him, and then he went down through the yard and he flew away.
Well, just the thought of just sitting back, having some breakfast, and seeing an unusual bird in the yard, that makes me really comfortable. I'd like to be in that situation too more often. On a Saturday morning up at the cabin, preferably. Betty, have you, are you much of a birder? Do you know one when you see one, if it's unusual, or is it just casual?
No, it was unusual. I never see like him before.
Yeah.
Never seen him.
It's too bad you don't have a picture, but I'll bet you there are some people out there listening to this who have...
some more people might see him, yes.
Yeah, or who might have an idea just from your own description. Is there anything else unusual about it? How big would you say it was compared to, say...
He was bigger than a robin.
Bigger than a bread box?
Yes, it was bigger than a robin. He's about the size of a smaller crow.
All right. Well, look, in the St. Mary's area, if there's anything else you can tell us about him, just for people listening, because, again, without a picture or a video or something.
No, somebody else. I suppose more than me see him up there now.
Yeah. And only one of them, just by himself, was he? Or
just
her?
one by itself, yes.
Okay. Well, I'll throw this one out to my birder friends, and we got a birder extraordinaire coming on the program tomorrow, the one and only Bruce McTavish. We're talking about him. Going to have him on the show tomorrow on an unrelated topic, but I'll throw this one at him. Just one more time, quick, brief description from what you can remember.
Pardon?
I said just one more time for our listeners, just a brief description.
Yeah, he was kind of a brownish with black wings, and he had a black spot under his chest, just one black stripe under his chest, and he had a long beak.
And a pretty long, and longer than usual beak.
No, he was a nice looking bird, but he was there around. I was eating my breakfast. He was there, he was going around the yard, and then he flew away.
All right, Betty, we'll throw it out there for the masses to see if anyone's got any ideas what it might be and how foreign it might be to our shores. And I said Bruce McTavish on the show tomorrow, and I'll put it by him too. So keep your ear to the radio, and because I'm sure we'll get a bit of reaction to this. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go right to line number one. And Scott Tessier, the CEO of the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Energy Regulator, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for making the time for me.
And thank you equally for making time for us. So, time being the operative word here. We don't have a lot of it today. It's pretty busy. But we had you here for this very important little info session of our own on Open Line. We're talking about, of course, the public review for the Equinor and BP backed Bay du Nord development, of course, and the project as it occurring at the formal application process and the public opportunity for the public to view and go over the application. Scott, just off the top, these sessions are coming up, I think, starting on Monday. What does the application itself consist of, and how digestible would you say it is for the average Joe?
The application consists of the development plan, the benefits plan, safety analysis, and socioeconomic impacts. So perhaps not accessible to the average layperson, but we will be providing opportunity for Equinor to present an overview of the project at the public information sessions that begin on Monday.
Right, and so let's see. The first one is, I'm just looking at schedule here, at 6 o'clock at, why am I not seeing the actual local? Oh, this one's on, okay. So Monday is Zoom only, correct? That's a virtual.
That's right. Monday's session is a virtual session.
Okay, and then in person in Clarenville, and people can see this online the next day, and then it goes to Marystown, then there's an online, then you're in Corner Brook, Quality Hotel in Gander, and then the Holiday Inn. So this is between this Monday coming and July the 9th. What should people know about this entire process that they don't already know or that you want to get out there?
So Monday is the formal start of a 60-day public review, and the development application proposes how the project would be developed and operated, how it would be carried out safely, and what it could mean for communities in our province and the economy of Newfoundland and Labrador and the rest of Canada. Concurrent with that, our staff is carrying out technical assessments of the development application, and the public review complements our technical assessment, and all that culminates in recommendations to our board and ultimately to governments with respect to the go forward on the project.
Yeah, and I know that Equinor, when they were at the Energy NL conference recently, I think Seth I was going to say Seth. Laura, I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. For Canada, Canada operations for Equinor. I know he's been really accessible, of course. At those conferences, a lot of talk about really tight timelines, can't really miss an opportunity. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the sound bites that came out of the Energy NL conference talked a lot about, time is of the essence. We really can't miss sort of our little target dates, not necessarily the gates, but the point for the desire to at least have sanctions, say, by 2027 and first oil by 2031. Is that generally accepted as reasonable? Doable?
Well, it's not only Equinor who are talking about time sensitivity. Governments are seized with matters of energy security, affordability, and reliability. So there is a lot of scrutiny on Canada's ability to deliver and Newfoundland and Labrador's place in Canada's delivery. So that's something that's shared amongst governments, the industry, the public, and ultimately regulators.
Has it been kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it a wake-up call, but this whole, I assume we have a deal. We don't know yet with the Iran war, but, I know that OPEC just recently it made their, I think, fourth increase in oil output targets in as many months, looking to release more oil in light of the war. But once those sanctions and that sort of, when things come back to normal, do you think the need is going to be as great as we were concerned about or thought we might need during the war? Like when we get that kind of, smack to our realization and our senses and say, look, first of all, the need is still very great, as we can see right now, because newer, greener technologies have not caught up and have not ramped up as much as a lot of people expected.
Yeah, I mean, the energy transition is what I describe as uneven at best. The conflict in the Middle East, Brian, is just the latest in a series of significant disruptions in how the world is looking at energy security, supply, and affordability. And it's the reality. The uncertainty is the reality, and people are looking at Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador differently than they have in the past 10 years.
Yeah. What would be success in this case? Like, do you expect, as far as these public hearings go, I mean, obviously you'd like to see a good turnout for it, but are there other ways people can contribute and ask questions beyond just the actual sessions?
Absolutely. So we do encourage people to register for the sessions through our website, cnloer.ca. And interested parties can provide written feedback if they wish. So details on how to do that are also found on that same website.
Okay, and I get a lot of calls on the benefits agreement and that sort of thing that was signed. There's just so many things going on here at the same time, but at the same time, yeah, thanks, Dave. Sorry, just had in my ear. But yeah, no, look, Scott, I wish you nothing but the best with it all. It's important that people know these things are happening because we talk about the transparency and the communication and the informed public. I mean, we have parallel to this talk of the Churchill Falls and people concerned that they really just don't know enough about it, the technical aspects, to be able to make an informed opinion as members of the public. Are you confident that this process regarding Beta Nord will do that?
The public interest is in good hands with the staff of the CNLOER. I can assure the public of that. I'm happy to check in as we go through this process, Brian. I'm happy to check in and provide listeners with an update on how things are going and how things are looking. And if you haven't heard from me in too long and there's interest, I'm happy to come on and talk more about our review of the project as it proceeds. All
right, and this is the review period is open till like mid-August, I think the 20th. At what point, will we, be able to? Will you take all of this and compile it into a response that people can say, okay, yeah, my view and my opinion on this is represented?
So we have a notional planning timeline to conclude the public review, our staff assessment, the recommendation to our board, and then ultimate ratification by governments of our board's recommendations, all before the end of calendar year 2026.
Okay, and I had one other question for you, just like, I guess, if indeed the development has been submitted at like 400, I think, a million barrels, does that, the fact that they are now talking 550, does that change anything?
It's ultimately submitted as a phased development application. So, the number 430 million barrels that's being bandied about is quite likely the floor, and the ceiling is quite likely quite a bit higher. So these are all things that we'll consider as we proceed.
Okay. Look, I appreciate the time today, Scott. Thanks so much, and I look forward to you keeping us up to date as it moves along.
Anytime, and thanks for squeezing me in.
Thanks. Take care.
You too.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to number 8 and welcome the president of the Fish Food and Allied Workers Union, Dwan Street, to the program. Good morning, Dwan.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Thursday, nothing on the go. International.
Yeah, no, I think this might be the first time that we've spoken since you took over the helm from Betty.
I think it may very well be, because you haven't been busy and neither have I.
Not at all. Not at all.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, so I guess wanted to call in and talk about the new initiative that we just received funding approval from the provincial government. It's the acronym is FINE, and it's the Fishing Industry New Entrants Initiative. Mm-hmm. And it's something we've been pushing for the last few years to try and get government on board. Unfortunately, it sat with the previous Liberal government for far too long, but we're very happy that Minister Paddock has approved this program, and we're really excited to get started.
So this really goes to the heart of, the changing, as people have mentioned, the demographic, trying to get new entrants. It is what it is, new entrants initiative, get new people into the system, into the industry, and targeting through this FINE, F-I-N-E, as you said, what do we call it? I'm trying to get that's the acronym. Fish Harvesters Safety Association. Okay, sorry, guy, go ahead. New Entrants Initiative.
No worries. Yeah, it's the Fishing Industry New Entrants Initiative. Lots of acronyms, right? Yeah. And it's in partnership with the PFHCB, which is the Professional Fish Harvesters Certification Board, and the Newfoundland and Labrador Fish Harvesting Safety Association as well.
And this is in tandem, right? I mean, I'm just looking at the northern cod quotas that were announced last week, the increases and that sort of thing. It's great to have an increased quota for the inshore, but if you don't have people that can harvest it or work the business, then that's a problem. Obviously, we want the quotas, seeing them increase from our days in the early 90s are a great thing. So who are you targeting? How do you target a demographic to get them to enter into the industry, given all of the all of the issues that you can face these days just trying to go down that road?
Sure. I mean, over the last year or so, we've been trying to make a better effort to get out, whether it's into college career fairs or into high schools, because, of course, I think that's the key point right there. For far too long, we've heard this false narrative that the fishery is a dying industry. There's no money in it, too much uncertainty, but that's not the case. And you just mentioned the increase in northern cod tech, and there you go. I mean, obviously, the industry's growing. We are seeing a lot of young folks wanting to get into the industry, but asking questions as to how. So, obviously, to do that, you need resources. We want to get out as much as we can, but we just need a little extra boost. So this funding is going to allow us to, we have hired a project coordinator. Her name's Eli Pittman. She's absolutely fabulous. And to get some promotional materials like videos with young harvesters in the industry to kind of combat that narrative to say, no, this is actually a very good profession. It's a very good job. I'm my own boss, and, talk about a lot of the positives.
Yeah. Okay. So the investment in that, of course, and just try to, as you said, change the mindset that it's, that it's a dying industry. I mean, it's a billions industry. What are we talking about here? We know it. And not only that, with the resurgence, and let's hope, we take a very careful approach to how we increase those tax on cod so we don't end up where we did before. Dwan, quick note on this. Obviously, the Labrador Fisheries Collective and, of course, MP Philip Earle has been pushing back against the quotas, complaining that Labrador has just been sort of left to the sidelines here, especially when it comes to the Indigenous allocation. And they wanted a greater percentage of the TAC to be, dedicated to Indigenous rights holders and that sort of thing. I know that the FFAW has sort of supported the 15% share for Labrador's inshore harvesters. Is there, does Philip Earle have a case?
Well, Brian, I think it's an unfortunate divide that's happened here politically on this stock. And obviously, we support the shrimp company in its operations every single day. Those are our members in the plant, our harvesters delivering product. So when this straw started, it was really... If you're going to talk about a picture, obviously you're going to pick the pieces that are going to suit your narrative, but the whole picture is not being told here. And I mean, when
isn't
you look
it always the way with the fishery?
It really is. And when you look at the shrimp company, obviously, incredible operation, the heart of southern Labrador, And I actually got to see it for myself there a couple of years ago when I went to their AGM. But there's kind of a narrative that the shrimp company is being left out and barred from having access to fish, and that's not the case, because obviously the inshore left 38% of their quota in the water last year in Labrador from that 15% share, and that 15% has increased this year with the overall increase. They also have access with the MV Osprey. They also have access to fish through a partnership with Lamech. They also had 192 tons with the banker boats that they didn't even harvest last year and only landed 100, and actually fished that off Fogo, not off Labrador. So, it's a very complex argument. I'm not in the interest of fighting with the shrimp company or our members, because I think there's really unfortunate behavior, and we're stronger when we're together on this, because obviously this is a stock we've all nursed back to health over the last few decades, and we need to be working together on this, and division really, really serves nobody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it, we're not always getting the full story on this. That's been my greatest challenge covering the fishery the last 25 years. People are very selective in the details and the information that they want to put forward on behalf of their own side. And that only makes sense when you're lobbying for this, that, or the other thing. And I just look at those quotas. It's funny, we're talking about a new entrance program for the FFAW, but that's exactly the issue up there. They want to be new entrants into that fishery, and my impression is that the people who are already there and those who are already making do with the stock don't want new entrants. Bottom line.
Yeah, and it's not even that, though, but they're not new entrants. They already have access.
Yeah, but there are
I think that's a piece that's being lost, right?
Yeah, it's just letting anyone in the door to, more quotas on top of what's already there. It just, the way that I think the Nunavut Council had pursed it last week, just talking about groups saying that they just didn't want to have any more, fish or hands in the pot, so to speak, But I know it comes down to the quota. I can't remember his exact quote, but it was along the lines of, they want to become new entrants to this. So I'll leave that there. I better check on that, only because the specifics of what exactly. I had an email here from him, and he made the point on the conservation point. But look, okay, Dave, I got that. Dave just sent me a note there. Right. A note for you, Dwan, just a quick note from Skills Canada. I'm currently listening to the conversation around the fishing industry and getting young people to learn about careers in fishing. Are you able to get me the correct contact person on air chatting with Brian right now? Well, yeah, we can do that. We promote careers to youth in NL, and I would love to have a chat with this person, Dwan Street, president of the FFAW, regarding how Skills Canada can help get the word out to students around careers in fishing in the NL. I missed the beginning of the chat where she was introduced. Well, now, so that's Skills Canada reaching out. They want to have a chat with you and partner, I guess, on this new entrance. So I imagine you're open to that?
Absolutely. No, it's great.
Sure. SkillsCanada.com. Dave's got the contact information. I'll drop you on hold there, and Dave can fill you in. But look, thanks for making time for the program, and I'll get my ducks in a row on that other new entrant email that I had been sent about that, and the pushback to saying no more new entrants. Yes, sir. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so Dwan, I'm going to put you on hold there for Dave to give you that information from the Skills Canada person. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Right to line number 5, and Drew Richardson, co-chair external with Happy City. You're on the air.
Hi, Brian. How's it going?
Grand. Busy morning, but always time for Happy City because we're trying to be happy here. Doing my best to keep things good newsy, and on the positive side, which we've been trying to do, but sometimes, it's like you're beating your head against a bit of a brick wall. I'm sure you probably know that feeling sometimes, despite the mandate of Happy City.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely does get hard to try to keep positive about it, everything all the time, I guess. But it's a part of life to have those things that we have to talk about that are uncomfortable and not always positive, I guess.
Yeah, but and one of those, of course, earlier the week we were talking a lot about e-bikes and scooter legislation, potential legislation, or necessary, absent legislation, if you will, when it comes to the safety and operation of these things on our roads, more and more so. I want to get into that, of course, just to get your take on it, but you guys had a meeting last night, or a town hall at the farmers market last night, did you not?
Yeah, we did. We had a a town hall with at-large Councillor Kate Cadigan.
Yeah.
And it went really well. We had a decent attendance, and, just getting another conversation started with another councillor so that, residents of St. John's feel like they can interact with their councillors outside of those election periods.
What were some of the highlights of last night?
So we had Adam Walsh moderating the event.
Mm-hmm.
So we went over different topics like climate and sustainability, transportation and mobility obviously being a big one, and then obviously affordable housing being another huge box that we always have to tick at these events because of the current status of housing in St. John's, and St. John's obviously is not the only place that is tasked with this problem right now. It's right. More of a widespread housing crisis, but yeah, so we touched on all those subjects, and then we opened up the floor to residents as well.
Yeah, and how was that? Normally when you open up the floor, that's when the rubber really meets the road. So anything dominate the chats from the microphone?
I wouldn't say anything dominated at all. We talked about there was a few questions about the pedestrian model. There was a few questions about seniors and housing. Those were the two, I think, standout topics. But neither of them dominated the conversation, okay. I wouldn't say. But, concerns were heard, and they'll be taken back to council for sure.
On the pedestrian mall, and in general, going back to the bike, scooter, e-bikes, scooters, and the speeds and the risks and the safety issues and all that sort of thing, does Happy City have a position on how we go forward with this? I mean, what the landscape looks like right now, and where we can get, or where we need to be, so that people can feel a little bit safer, and that there are real rules and regulations that have to be adhered here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we have a position, but what I would say is that mainly we don't have a position because that's not something that Happy City typically does. But what I would say is we haven't necessarily heard from residents about the specific category of e-bikes and e-scooters. But what we have heard from residents is the need for more of these shared use paths. They're getting built out currently. Like, as we're speaking, it's construction season this year, and there's being more added to the city. But a lot of residents would like to see that continue throughout the future and the upcoming years, to really get those networks so that they have a safer place to, whether that's walk, run, bike, scooter, that isn't on the road, right? That is what we really hear from residents constantly, over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have concerns yourself? I mean, do you see this? Have you ever had any? I mean, we talk about Happy City. I mean, part of Happy City is a safe city, so I can appreciate you might not have, say, a position statement or something formal like that, but it must be on your radar to make even representation. Do you not would that be something that you would be in your realm?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory in terms of we need speed caps on these, new technology. Essentially, the technology has come out, and what we have to do, or our legislators have to do, is essentially catch up the legislation or the bylaws to the tech that is coming out, right? That is basically adaptation, and one of the things that residents want to see, whether that is just e-bikes or e-scooters or any other type of technology, right, that is coming out to keep people safe and to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand too quickly, right. For sure.
As far as your town halls go, these are, as you said, they're sporadic or on a regular basis. What's in the offing? Anything new coming up? When's the next one?
Yeah, so we have one coming up on June 23rd with Ward 2 Councillor Brenda Hawley at the Palace Commons. So we're really looking forward to that one, and we're going to have a few, I believe at least one more to announce in the upcoming week as well. Just have to get a few things ironed out with that.
Sorry, where did you say the one with Councillor Hawley is?
It's at the Palace Commons. So it is in the Cathedral in Ward 2.
The Cathedral of the Anglican Cathedral?
The Basilica, yeah.
St. John, okay, the St. John, the Baptist, the Basilica.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
1 second.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of construction on the go there right now too, but I just want to be sure. I've never, lived in the city my entire life to hear it called the Palace Commons. I don't think there's a lot of people that. So you're talking about the palace, the Archbishop's Palace.
True, yeah.
Connected to St. Bon's and the Basilica. Okay, all right.
Yes, exactly.
So I've never heard it called the Palace Commons before, although it's probably a formal term. We just always referred to it as the Palace. So I just wanted to be sure for ambiguity's sake or lack thereof.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably me being an insider.
No, it's okay. It's there's individual lexicon or colloquialisms to all different parts of the city, and some listen. I still learn something every day, and that's the value of life. But look, Drew, I appreciate the call today, and by all means, the next town hall, by all means, give us a shout back and promote that one as well, just so people know. A lot going on, and you get email notifications and that sort of thing when the city is having an event and that sort of thing, and they can mention it at council, and there are ways to notice it online. But for people, it's not always on top of mind consciousness when they hear it in the moment, and they actually have the night free. Look, if they should have it, then it's always good to remind people in the moment. So if you get a chance before the 23rd, even on the 23rd, if you like, give us a shout back.
Absolutely.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go to Merv Wiseman on line 5. Merv, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Brian. Thanks for putting me on.
You're very welcome.
This morning, and I wanted to talk about the Transport Safety Board report
on the Titan.
Yeah, just very quickly before I do, look, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a minute to extend my congratulations to Barry Felton. He's the chair, of our food fisheries committee.
Yes, sir.
For his induction into the Seniors with Distinction Award last week. The ceremony, of course, there were 12 inducted, and of course Barry was right at the front end there, and boy, it speaks volumes, to Barry, this individual who's contributed, and of course he was assessed in this merit award on the work that he's done for the community out there, his giving, to charitable organizations, his contributions towards safety, ATV safety, hunter safety, and instructions and so on with hunter safety programs. Oh, the list just goes on, and the kinds of things that Barry's been doing. Even, every year he gives his fish, he gives his seal flippers, and if the seal flippers are not available, he goes out and purchases them because he's got people and seniors that he just gives them to, and I can't say enough of it. I just wanted to say that, Brian, because it's been a week now since he received that award, and I felt really remiss in not mentioning it before,
No, I'm glad you did. Well deserved, and I'm sure he appreciates it.
Yes, thank you for that. And look, getting down to the TSB reports on the Titan, look, there's a lot to unpack there, Brian, as you can appreciate. It's a 134-page report, and obviously I haven't gotten into all the details and all the minutiae around that, but I have, hit the key points and some of the recommendations, of which there are 6 recommendations. But I got to say, man, I'm at a loss that many other things besides the oversight or things related to the oversight of the Titan, the company Ocean Gate and Stockton Rush, all the things related to that. I expected to see a significant piece of work done with regard to the search and rescue operations that occurred out there, which was carried out, by a Canadian registered vessel, the Polar Prince, which, by the way, is the ex-Norfolk Albert. I guess you probably knew that anyway.
Yes.
And a great base to operate from. I mean, when the company signed on to this on Horizon Maritime Services Limited, I don't think they could have found a better platform to do their operations. Be that as it may, as they got out on site and as this particular implosion occurred, or as communications were lost, something like an hour and a half after they got on their way that morning around 9:30. And, it wasn't until about 5:30 that evening that it was reported to Search and Rescue, the lead agency in the United States, of course, who took the lead on that one, notwithstanding the fact that the Canadian resources were deployed. And in fact, what happened over the next 2 or 4 days, Brian, represented one of the biggest air-surface search and rescue events that I've seen executed. I had 35 years with Canadian Coast Guard Search and Rescue, and it's as a retired coordinator and so on. I've never seen this level of effort put into any kind of a search and rescue. They had a Coast Guard fleet out there, the best and the top ships that's out there, HMCS. They had engaged expertise, hyperbolic chamber personnel were out on scene in case and so on. We had fixed-wing Hercules, fixed-wing Aurora, trying to do electronic searches for 3 or 4 days. You recall all that stuff, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Merv. I mean, look, it captured the imagination of the world for a reason. First of all, it was the race against time. I mean, it was real-time race to save, lives and the uncertainty. And, of course, you throw in the added aspect of the fact that it involved a trip to the most famous shipwreck in our history. And I should mention, of course, today is the actual 3-year anniversary of the tragedy. But for all of those reasons, it captured, the attention of the world. We were the highlight of it. You had the likes of Anderson Cooper, everybody setting up shop down at the harbour with live international reports. For all those reasons, it captured that. But, when they talk about how all of this could happen, the oversight could go over everybody's head and people knew this was happening, but it was able to go. To me, it comes down to the same old rule in journalism, right? Until a tragedy occurs, it's easy to dismiss or to make it a secondary concern, or some other concern until something actually happens.
Yes, indeed.
Unfortunately.
You've nailed it there. Unfortunately, yes, and it is a very sad day in the history of maritime tragedies in this province because of what happened on June 18th, 2023. And, Brian, this operation, we've got to talk about the cost of it. Mm-hmm. It's probably well in excess of $20 million that was thrown out by the Canadian government alone. That's aside from the lead agency, the United States, and what involved. Our responsibility, as we started to investigate and do this report, our responsibility was tied intrinsically to the polar prints and to the operations and search and rescue operation, and the fact that the Titan was operating in and out of Newfoundland, St. John's, and in fact, since I think it was 2021, I'm trying to be corrected a little bit on this, that they actually had an MOU with our very own Marine Institute, mm-hmm. who had signed an MOU talking about different types of operations that they could engage with, different expectations, and in fact, they even conjectured to take, when the opportunity arose, to take some Marine Institute personnel down if there's an empty seat sort of thing. God forbid, that we got into those kinds of things, but that potential was there for a further loss of life and so on. So all of that being said, how could oversight happen on some of the key safety issues that were there in light of, that kind of a relationship between our own Marine Institute, who is, by the way, a center of excellence on nautical matters, on design of vessels and vehicles, ROVs, and many, many other things. So that's a subject in and of itself. But this Transport Safety Board report really put DFO, Parks Canada, many other federal agencies really put them out to dry on the fact that they knew about a lot of the activities that were going on with regard to the Titan, and they failed to notify Transport Canada. Well, excuse me, Brian, if Transport Canada didn't know what was happening from 2019, especially 21, 22, 23, if they didn't know about what was happening in the activities, and this guy Stockton Rush, who was very arrogant, to say the least, in everything that he operated with, and tried every trick in the book to undermine, through his company in OceanGate, to undermine getting out there and to get under the radar of any regulations that might exist. Even to the point where he had been doing this operation under the guise of science. This was not science. Brian, by any standard, I mean, this was extreme tourism.
It was experimentation, very much.
Very much so. The very fact that he was dealing with carbon-based material and not with the kind of steel or titanium material that is usually used, the fact that he wouldn't go near classification society or any design engineers to get proof that what he had was something, he tried to say, that this was science.
Yep.
And, well, excuse me, though, if you want to go down, it'll cost you $250,000. Hello, science, and hello, commercial. That's what this was all about.
Absolutely.
So,
I was just going to say, and when you do 79 dives, this was the 80th without a problem. Again, you can convince people that you're doing things okay if they don't want to take the time to investigate and do the necessary safety. When you got 80 dives, again, this was the 80th dive for this kind of, for the Titan, for that type of carbon fiber tube, if you want to call it, very small. But Merv, I got to get off the break, but I appreciate your call and your input on this coming from your expertise.
Well, certainly, because I want to deal with the search and rescue piece. That is very important.
Yep.
There are things that needs to be said about the search and rescue component of this that could have easily saved lives, could have saved millions of dollars, and could have done all kinds of things. And I understand that people's preoccupation is with the Titan, the vehicle, and all the things, around Ocean Gate and Stockton Rush and all this. I appreciate that. That there's a certain glamour and there's a certain card that draws you to that. But we need, in Canada in particular, in this case, we need to spend more attention on what happened if we want to prevent things from happening in the future, and what happened in this search and rescue operation and what was attached to this, which was not contained in the report. And I think it's a failure and it's a gap that needs to be talked about. Thank you, Merv. I'm glad you're talking about it, and I'm sure others will. Thanks a lot. I got to get off to a call, but I appreciate it. Every bit of information, every bit of input on it. It was a horrific tragedy right on our shores. Won't soon forget it, but thanks for your call today. All the best. Thank you.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go right to line number 6. And Ruth Lawrence, you're on the air.
Hi, Brian. I'm just calling today. I'm actually just responding to a call from you to talk about Wendy Smallwood this morning.
Yes, absolutely. And I could put it into words, but I'll let you do it. I spoke a little bit about this yesterday, the loss of her to the arts community, all of the people she touched along the way, and her energy and her enthusiasm and the work and advocacy and on and on and on. It's a big loss, a massive loss for our arts community here in the province. Your thoughts?
Yes. Well, others have been talking about it, of course, for like the last week. It's just, as you can tell, I'm still feeling pretty broken and tired by the loss of Wendy. She's just been a massive part of our community her entire life, but in particular in the last 20 years. I mean, she came back 2 decades ago with, the fire in her spirit and in her belly, and just really came back to offer so much to this community, from her on-stage presence, her on-screen presence, to all the work behind the scenes that many people really did not ever see. Wendy worked tirelessly on boards. She worked with administration for so many arts companies, did grant writing, and no one sees that. Yeah. But what we did get to see with Wendy was the extraordinary and moving, powerful performances that she brought to us on stage, whether it was Shakespeare or brand new work that was being presented at the Hall or with any theater company that she worked with in the province. And then on screen, most recently, her star turn in Skeet, Next Sexton's movie was just, for me, I can remember when that movie came out, thinking, oh my gosh, she's finally getting these moments to shine, and then last year to get a cancer diagnosis, it just took the legs out from under all of us. But again, Wendy, she powered through that treatment and would write about it really frankly and brutally honest ways on social media, really highlighting to all of us not just the struggle but the beauty she was finding in life at the same time, and the humor she brought with that. So yeah, she's going to be dearly missed in this community and across the country. Really, the tributes came in from across the country through social media, through text messages and emails. She was a powerhouse, the name I just posted a moment ago. Her name is a full sentence.
Yeah, and to see, as you said, I mean, very few and far between are the outpourings that I've seen for Wendy, whether it's from the extra-national, the local scene, internationally even, not just even across the country, the people that you touch through our work. And you talk about all the behind the scenes. I mean, yes, we often talk about the on stage, right? And it's the performance, and it's what sticks with the public, and you get to see the face of it there. But you and I, and most people in the arts community, if you've ever worked on a production, no matter where, how many hands, it's just as much, if not more, behind the scenes just to get it to the stage and get a production like that. And she was a whirling dervish, I will say, from the time that the brief interactions that I had, just knowing, and the way people spoke about her in other circles, before this moment, and of course now. So, look,
she would love that. She would love that description of the whirling dervish.
We reserve that for a few people in our community, right? But I think it's definitely apropos. Definitely apropos in this case.
Absolutely. And thank you and your listeners for, over the years, all the incredible support that they've shown Wendy, to our community. It really means a lot to us when you reach out at times like this, because we're really feeling it right now.
And I can feel that you're feeling it. So, Ruth, that's why I reached out. I'm really glad you could make time. It was one thing for me to speak about it yesterday, but you were the one. So thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you, Brian.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 5, and Mike Murray, you're on the air.
Yeah, morning, Brian. How are you?
Pretty good. Flat out here today. I got one more
busy morning.
Yeah, and I got one bouquet that a woman wants to throw out near the end of the show, so I got about 6 minutes. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
No problem.
Oh, by the way, when you were talking to Joel about Willicott Lane, I lived on Willicott Lane for a while in the late 80s for about a year, I think. So it's funny how it works. Downtown is not that big.
No, it's not. I love that. I cut through it all the way on the way to court, I used to, but love it.
All right, so a couple days ago, the federal government passed a criminal law package, bail reform, and a couple other things. I just...
what jumps out at you?
Yeah, you asked me to hit the high points on that, so I will as quick as I can. One change is that some offenses consecutive sentences will be sort of strongly encouraged, if not mandatory. If you're sentenced for 2 or 3 things. As you know from the courts yourself, lots of times sentences are concurrent. So we'll see what happens with that. Another thing that they did was...
and just so people know, concurrent and consecutive, obviously...
Yeah, concurrent, you serve them at the same time. Consecutive is one after the other.
Yeah, so they add them up as opposed to just doing one set of sentence for one offense. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's fine. The next thing is they ban conditional sentences for some offenses. A conditional sentence is the legal jargon for house arrest, I guess, as opposed to real jail. And sexual assault and some sexual offenses against children are not going to be eligible for conditional sentences.
Right.
And then there were some changes to bail, and that's what made the most news. Now, the media mostly...
I was just going to say, do you want to explain reverse onus and how it normally works?
Yeah, no sweat. So the onus in court is just who's got to prove what. So they made some offenses reverse onus, which means that instead of the Crown having to prove that you stay in, you have to prove that you can stay out. But even though that gets a lot of media play, it's not really a big deal on an everyday basis, because the onus is what? Say 51 to 49. I mean, either somebody's safe to release or there's not. There's bigger changes in bail, but they're more in the weeds. One is that it's going to be easier to revoke bail after somebody's found guilty before sentencing. Another thing is that they say the ladder principle, which the Supreme Court of Canada came up about 10 years ago, and the Trudeau government put it into the criminal code. The latter principle is that, you just start with a promise to show up in court, and if you breach that, then you move up the next step, which would be a promise with more conditions. Then you move up the next step, which might be a release with a promise to pay money if you breach, and then you move up to the next step, which might be, say, kind of house arrest conditions and having to actually put some cash down. So you would go up the ladder. So potentially you'd be released about 5 times before you'd be held. Yeah. And they're trying to get rid of that principle for some serious and violent offenses. Also, another big deal is that the court's going to have to scrutinize people's bail plans. For example, if you tell the duty counsel legal aid lawyer, and he tells the court that you're going to live at 40 Empire Avenue. There's lots of times I've seen it myself. If nobody checks, that 40 Empire Avenue could turn out to be a vacant lot, or the people there never heard of you. And then the police don't know where Buddy is. And, so if the changes are enforced, those things are going to have to be checked. If someone says, I'll put down $1,000 to get my son, little Johnny, out, they're going to check to see if you actually got the $1,000. So those are the things that are going to make an impact on a daily basis.
Mike,
not just that onus stuff. That's just...
It's shocking how much time I don't have right now to get into some of this. Obviously, the first one that jumps out to me with the reverse onus is more people incarcerated, and do we have the space for them? But look.
Well, let me see if I can say 2 things real quick.
Okay.
Number one, so space is going to be an issue. It's got to be obviously one out for everyone that goes in if it's full. The second thing is that the real question is, this is the law now, but is it really? Because the Supreme Court of Canada has struck down similar laws 100 times over the past 10 or 15 years. So are these laws going to stand up? And if they don't, what's going to be done about it?
Mike, let's do this again, please, next week. I want to have more time, and I do apologize right into the end of the show.
No sweat.
We're always up against it.
No sweat.
Appreciate it. Let's expand next week if you got some time.
Alrighty.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Alrighty, bye. And that'll do it for the Thursday edition. Take it easy out there. Be patient if you can. Do your best. Drive safely. Arrive alive. VOCM cares.